Hey there, rock and roll podcast fans. This is Mike Hoban. Welcome to Rat Tales, the podcast that brings you the music and stories of the Boston rock scene that grew out of the mid-'70s at the Rat and some of the other hellhole joints, each with their own sick charm. And that was 2LN, Who Doesn't Know, by The Rising Storm, from the LP Calm Before, released in 1967 and featuring our guest Bob Cohan, who played and still plays guitar for The Rising Storm. Thanks for being here today, Bob. You were all in high school when you met? Which school, and how did you all meet?
It's Phillips Academy, Andover, Massachusetts. And just to set the stage, let me tell you that we're talking about the mid-'60s, which was a time of tremendous turmoil all around the country. And this was a fairly conservative prep school. It's the George Bush prep school. That's what they all say about that day and age. In fact, he was the head cheerleader when I was a freshman. So it didn't move quite with the times. We were very restricted in where we could go and where we could be. We weren't let out of off campus except a couple of weekends a semester, and so most of our social life revolved around the dances that occurred most every Saturday night, where they would truck in girls from another girls' school, or they would truck the boys out to the girls' school. And we were one of the bands that played at those dances.
All the students basically lived on campus?
Yeah, there are a couple of day students, but for them, everyone in the band lived on campus. We lived with each other 24/7.
Was that instrumental in forming the band, and that there wasn't much to do on campus as far as extracurricular activities?
Oh yeah, well that's right. You know, you were either studying, or you were in sports, or you were in classes, or you were doing some extracurricular activity, and the Rising Storm was ours.
Originally you had formed as a jug band?
That's right. When we were sophomores, our whole dorm formed a jug band, just for fun. And we were a big hit for about 3 seconds, and some of us who really enjoyed music stayed on, the remnants of that band, and that became our first band.
Remnants?
The Remnants. You might notice that our album is on Remnant Records. That's sort of a tip of the hat to the early name of our band. We were, to be kind, pretty awful. We did get one gig our junior year in at a dorm dance party, and at that point in time we knew 10 songs. There were all the band members were there, plus we had one other, KB Warren, who was our singer, but he eventually dropped out. He was more interested in sports than singing, and we didn't do that well. There were a number of bands on campus. There were bands ahead of us senior year. The Spectres were a very well-known band. There were other bands. And so we didn't expect that we were going to have much of a life, because there was another band our year that we expected was going to be the top band on campus. Now, let me tell you our Cinderella story now, because this means a lot to me. We didn't expect to get many gigs senior year, because there was this other band on campus that was very good. But over the summer, between junior and senior year, we all practiced like crazy and worked real hard. We get back to campus and we find out that the big band on campus, whose name I can't recall, might have been the Magic Mushrooms, not sure. 2 of the guys were on pro because their grades were bad. Being on pro meant they couldn't go to these dances. If they couldn't go to the dances, they couldn't perform at the dances, and therefore they needed a band to play at the opening mixer, the big mixer with Abbott Academy, which, by the way, has now merged into Andover. Andover is now co-ed. But at that time, there was this big opening mixer beginning of the year with Abbott. And it was a big deal to play at that. And so at that point, we changed our name to The Rising Storm in hopes that we could get past the bad reputation that the Remnants had. But everybody knew who we were, and nobody was terribly excited that we were going to be playing this big mixer. Well, we blew them away. We did a fabulous job. And we did such a good job that after that, we were the big band on campus senior year, and we got all the gigs. And that meant we were making money, because we got up to $50 a night for performing, and that's where the money came from to pay for our album. We were popular among the students and among the faculty for some very important reasons. We had an 11-minute slow song. It was like 3 different songs: Catch the Wind, Tears Go By, back into Catch the Wind. And so the students loved it because that gave them time to dance slow for a long time. It made the proctors crazy because they'd be going around separating the couples who were getting too close. But at the end of the mixer, we always ended with I'm Crying, which is a real fast song, got everybody moving and pumped, so that it was easier for the faculty to get the kids back on the buses and back to their schools. So that was a big deal at the time. But I digress. Please, go ahead.
When the band formed, you all hadn't thought in terms of making music a career?
We weren't thinking of this as a career. We were just thinking of this as making music with close friends and having a lot of fun. What we did think we'd like to do, as other bands had done, was cut a record. So we saved our money from those dances to pay for the record that we put out. Continental Recording Studios in Framingham had a deal. They would give you a 2-color copy, they'd give you X amount of studio time, and they, soup to nuts, they'd give you a record. And other bands had done this before us, so we wanted to do it too. And we did. We printed 500 copies of the record, which we sold at $3 each. They were not an immediate sellout. Most of the kids who bought them as a sort of a memento of their senior year at school, or something to remember the school by. A lot of us walked away with a whole bunch of albums because they didn't all sell.
They've gone somewhere.
They've all gone somewhere now. Yeah. I still have 2, so if I fall on hard times, I'm throwing them up on eBay. Well, I know that Rich's grandmother bought a box of 25, but they seem to be gone too. They could have ended up anyway. Probably eBay, yeah. That's who we sold them. We sold them at the dances. We sold them to classmates. And I used my share to buy myself a Guild Starfire 6, which was bigger than I was at the time. It was a turnkey operation. You went in, you laid down the tracks, and then they handed you your albums. And then we all went our separate ways to different colleges. The 2 of us, Tony and Rich, went to Harvard. Charlie went to Middlebury. Tom went to UNC. I think Todd went to UNC too. I was at the University of Pennsylvania. We all went our different ways to develop our careers.
The Rising Storm was one of a few hundred high school bands across the country that recorded LPs like that, but you seem to be the one that was the most well-known and sought after.
No, we were very lucky. In those days, we weren't really thinking in terms of pursuing the music. And then the magic happened.
What year would you say the magic happened?
Well, I can't remember the exact date, but there was an alternative newspaper in Boston that did an article on, do you have the dates for these things? Do you remember when this was?
1981 and the Boston Phoenix.
Thank you. Boston Phoenix put an article out about collector's item records.
Oh, yes, I saw that. That's right.
Okay. And I remember my sister calling me and said, have you seen the Phoenix? And I went and I got it, and I read it, and my jaw dropped because our record was the focal point of the article. There was some guy named Eric Lindgren who was talking about how great we were compared to the other records of the genre. I didn't even know what the genre was at the time. They interviewed a fan of ours who made us sound like the Beatles. And it was hard to take this very seriously, but it was what a wonderful gift from the universe. Okay, great. So I contacted other band members. I think Tony had already heard about it, and he was contacting, and one of us got in touch with Eric Lindgren, and when he heard that we were still around, he was ecstatic, and he was largely the engine that brought us back together. And So we owe him a lot for that. He was a collector of this genre. What's the genre? Apparently, there's about 200 records that were put out by high school students around the same time we did, in some period of years, and ours was the best of the bunch. So thank you very much. Who was it said so? All Music Guide to Rock and Roll, that said we were one of the best of the bunch. And thank you very much, Richie Underberger, who wrote a chapter about our band in his book Unknown Legends of Rock and Roll. It was a very exciting time for us, but none of us really bought it. It just didn't make sense to us that what we did in high school would be this significant. But we did get back together, and they taped Eric. We played another reunion at Andover. I forget which year it was.
You found out at one of the school reunions?
Okay, so in 1981, we got back together to play a couple of clubs in Boston. We played the In Square Men Bar. We played the Rat. We did play a couple of places when we were students outside of campus. We played a couple of a country club dance in Worcester. We played, I think, at Design Research in Cambridge for an opening of some sort.
When you were students, was the band playing at other schools?
Well, yes, we were sort of in a prep school circuit of dances. Any girls' school that was going to have a dance with Andover, they needed a band, and very often they would hire us. So, we'd play Dana Hall and Abbott Academy, and I can't remember where else. I think we played Beaver, but I'm not sure.
Then you started playing your school reunions.
Right. After we graduated, we played a Yale reunion, and that was like 3 gigs. We played for the kids of the people who were coming in for the reunion, and that was a lot of fun and involved way too much alcohol. But when we played off campus as seniors, it was difficult because we were only allowed out 2 weekends a semester. I do remember we played a Battle of the Bands in Boston somewhere, but I'm not sure where that was. And that was pretty much the extent of our real career, with those performances. It wasn't until after we found out that our album was a collector's item that we got back together. And when we played the In Square Men's Bar and the Rat, there were people there we didn't know who knew about our record, which was really touching, because we still didn't grasp that this record had as much significance as was being attributed to it.
If there were only 500 copies printed, how did so many people get their hands on the copies?
Well, I don't really know. There were only 500 copies. Subsequently, I know that we were bootlegged in France. This is the bootleg. It's red and yellow. That was unauthorized. We eventually talked to them, and they sent us some royalties. I think enough for all of us to buy lunch. We were also, some of our songs were bootlegged on an English album, compilation album, with I recall, a hypodermic needle on the cover, which couldn't have been further away from what we thought we were. But that was, that came out too. But it was nice. We got back together and we rekindled friendships, and that was the most important thing. Because, it takes a lot of practice to get your chops back, and you're spending a lot of time alone together, and we had lived together for 4 years. We were family, and we rekindled all of that. So it was great to perform. We thought, okay, we're done. But then they recorded, Eric recorded that reunion, which was around the same time as the In Square Men's Bar. And it was great playing the reunion because all of the kids in our class remembered us because they'd gone to all those mixers with us, and it was a great trip down memory lane for all of us. We had a wonderful time. And then we thought, we're done. But then I think that, what was the next tour? You've got the list there.
The band played a few dates on their 25th anniversary that included playing at Maxwell's in New Jersey. How was that?
Maxwell's was a turning point for me, and I think maybe for some of the others, where we started to realize that there was something more here that we needed to be more respectful of. And I don't want to blow our horn too much, but I remember there was a young kid. He couldn't have been more than 18 or 19. And after our performance at Maxwell's, he took Tony aside and he said, "Wow, your song Frozen Laughter saved my life. When I broke up with my girlfriend, I just listened to that over and over again for 2 weeks. And he was really moved. I was really moved by this, that something we had done had that kind of effect. And I think after that I began to appreciate that maybe we had done something very special, and that maybe we should be more respectful of this and see this as some sort of a legacy that we could brag about to our kids, and not be so dismissive of it, you know. And then of course Richie Unterberger, who is a very well-respected rock and roll writer, wanted to include us in a chapter in his book, Unknown Legends of Rock and Roll. And so at that point I began to think that this deserves some more careful attention.
Why do you think the Calm Before LP still has such wide appeal?
What we were trying to do was the best we could. But what I have learned from what I've read in Unterberger's book and in the All Music Guide to Rock and Roll is that our album was notable for a couple of things. First of all, it was, least of all, it was technically proficient. It was a well-recorded album. Not many, no mistakes, good recording sound. But more importantly, the songs we chose weren't just the popular songs of the day. What we picked were songs that we really loved, and they were a little bit off of the beaten path at the time. I'm going to have to put on my glasses and look at the songs on them so I can tell you about it. We also had some original songs, which were very popular. Frozen Laughter is, I think, one of the things that made the album great, and Tony wrote that.
Orange shadows in the nighttime fill my dimly lit mind. When my heart begins to wander, my thoughts go far beyond her.
We did songs from bands that we loved that weren't well known, Mr. Wind.
I have no one to turn to. Skies are gray when they should be blue. Mr. Wind, please don't laugh that way. Mr. Wind, don't laugh as I begin to cry. Mr. Wind, don't laugh as I begin to cry.
That was Mr. Wind, a track from the Calm Before LP.
Big Boss Man.
Big Boss Man. Talk, that's all.
That was Big Boss Man, another track from the Calm Before LP.
Bright Lit Blue Skies.
What is this thing I call my mind? I look for the thing I can't find. Why am I so far from the crowd? My voice is quiet, but my thoughts are loud.
That was Bright Lit Blue Sky, another track from the Calm Before LP.
Rain Falls Down, which Rich wrote, was a beautiful, beautiful song.
I search endlessly inside the maze that is my mind through an eternity of thoughts, and I try to find the reason why.
That was Rain Falls Down, another track from the Calm Before LP.
I wrote To Ellen Who Doesn't Know, which has been described as a haunting melody. You know,
I'm imprisoned in my mind, but you are not aware. Too young to know I love, too old to show you care. Everything you do to make boys fall in love with you, they're just toys. I'm not your last success. Don't add me to the rest.
That was To Ellen Who Doesn't Know, another track from the Calm Before LP.
so there were some originals on it that really that really hooked people. And when we covered a song, we didn't just cover it, we interpreted it. And I think that's also what made us different. And we interpreted it in a really strong way. You know, we made it our own.
What'd your classmates think of the LP?
I think they've all been very polite in saying congratulations, that's exciting, but I think there's a lot of them that just feels like, so what? You know, some of them have really liked it. In fact, one of our classmates worked out in Hollywood. He'd worked on the Star Trek movies, and he was so excited about our band that he's the one who got us the deal with Warner Brothers to option a movie. So I know that we have some big fans in our class. In fact, they wouldn't invite us back to play at reunions otherwise. But then there are a couple who just aren't into the music. It's not their favorite kind of thing to listen to.
Were there any of the songs played on the radio?
If they have, I don't know, because I didn't have the radio on at the time. I can say we've been on the radio. We were interviewed by NPR one year.
In 92?
In 92. You know, one thing I didn't mention that I want to say is, you know, we touched upon it earlier. When we played at the Paradise, we opened for Barry and Remains. And I've got to tell you, that was huge for us. That was, in many ways for me, that was almost more important than opening for the, in Rotterdam, for the Yardbirds, because Barry and the Remains were our idols. And Tony had gotten friendly with Barry, and I think even represented him on a couple of matters. Tom got friendly with Chip Damiani, their drummer. So, you know, we kind of knew them. And I was in awe of Barry, and I got to know him as a person. He's a wonderful guy. And to be able to open for them was just huge for us. Our biggest influence back in the day was Barry and the Remains. We loved them. And eventually we played the Paradise and opened for them. And as you and your listeners may know, Barry and the Remains toured with the Beatles.
So you opened for the Remains, who had opened for the Beatles.
We opened for the band that opened for the Beatles, and that's a big deal to us. You know, we're 50 feet from stardom, as they say.
You recorded a Remains song in the original LP.
Yeah, Don't Look Back. It's actually one of our signature songs, and it's just a great song.
Was on Don't Look Back, a cover of a Remains song that was a lead track on the Calm Before LP.
I just wanted to be Barry. I thought he was the coolest guy in the world. When he played his guitar and did his duck walk across the stage, I thought, how can he do that? That's like walking and chewing gum at the same time. You know, he made it look so easy. You know, we had our own style. You know, I'd play and I'd jump off the stage, and we do a lot of horsing around. We had one song where we brought our drummer down to play lead and told everybody that nobody realized it, but he was quite an impressive lead guitar player, and he would strap on the guitar, and then Rich would go behind the stage, and when it came time for a lead break, Rich would play the lead, Tom would pretend to play it over his head, behind his back, everywhere else. Nobody ever seemed to notice that. He got standing ovations for his performance as a guitarist. So, you know, we just had fun. We weren't trying to emulate anyone. You know, we were just having a good time and trying to get everybody else at the dances to have a good time.
Did you know of any other local Boston bands who were playing around at the time?
Oh, sure. I mean, you know, we covered the Rock and Ramrods. I know we played a Paul Revere and the Raiders song, and I think, weren't they originally a Boston band or from around? Not a Boston band? Well, okay. Well, there was the Rock and Ramrods. There was Barry and the Remains. Everybody back in the day played Louie Louie, the Kingsmen's version of it, and I know they were a Boston band, you know. So when I was 16, being able to play the break in Louie Louie was a big deal, you know. Who else did we like? I think those are the Boston bands that we followed, but you know, we pulled from every place. We played songs by the Ventures, early Stones, even the Blues Magoos. We played Ain't Got Nothing Yet, for those of you who are old enough to remember that song. We played songs by the Animals, Donovan, the Blues Project, Can't Keep From Crying. That was a beautiful song. And Paul Revere and the Raiders. We played Just Like Me, and of course the Yardbirds. They were a big favorite of ours. And as you know, when you come to it, we opened for the Yardbirds in Germany. I don't remember the date of that one either. That was in Germany. That was in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam.
The band did a tour of Europe in 2007.
European tour in 2007. We played a club in London, the Dirty Water Club, and we were the top bill there. And the place could hold about 400, and I think there were about 200 or 300 people there, and they were from all over Europe. We basically covered our first album for these performances because that's what people wanted to hear, and there were kids young who weren't born when our album came out, who were singing along with us in English, which was their second language. It was pretty impressive. We're very fortunate that we've been able to be part of this, and that it's gone on for this long, because it's really exciting to be able to perform and have this happen. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a rocker, but every once in a while I'm a rocker, and it's great fun, and it's really satisfying. After our performance at the Dirty Water Club, I was signing autographs for half an hour. They were standing in line so that they could sign either a photo of our band or a record that they had. One guy came in with an original. I remember him from Poland. He knew everything on the album. He'd read every bit of it. And on the upper right-hand corner, in black magic marker, were the letters G-I-L-E-S, and he spelled it out to me. He says, "What does this G-I-L-E-S? What does this mean?" He'd been agonizing over that. And I said, "Oh, that's Stretch Giles. You must have gotten his copy. He lived across the hall from me. This is a man's name?" "Yeah, it's a man's name." "Oh." And it was just fascinating to see how much effort and how interested that these people were in our album.
An original LP ended up in Poland.
He was foolish enough to let it go at a yard sale or someplace else, and somebody found it, and it ended up in Poland. Yeah. And then we went on from there to this to play a 3-day festival in Rotterdam, and that was fabulous. The promoter put all of the bands into one hotel, and some band from, I think it was Ireland or Scotland, is coming down the stairs, as Rich is going up the stairs, and Rich says, "Hi, what band are you?" And he tells them. They say, "What band are you?" And Rich says, "Rising Storm." The guy puts down his suitcase and starts going like this, you know, and Rich doesn't know what to do. You know, it was awesome to be in that kind of situation. And then, of course, we performed, and we opened for the Yardbirds, our heroes, and there were like 2 original guys left, and you know, we were like this to them, you know, and I really wanted to meet them, but they stayed in their room and they came out. But we asked permission to do one of their songs. We did "Mr. You're a Better Man Than I," and they said it was okay, and so we did that song. And afterwards, one of the original Yardbirds came up to me and said, "Nice job," and tapped me on the elbow and said, "Nice job." And I haven't washed this elbow since, you know. So it was a very impressive time for us, very exciting time for us. At this point, I'm infinitely grateful that it does happen. We have a great time doing it, you know. And then we played the Pipeline, which was like a homecoming, because all our family and all our friends finally got to see what the big deal was about. And it was great to be able to perform for all these people who had the same, you know, head-scratching confusion about our album that we initially had. But they got to hear us, and they got to see us, and we were a dance band, and we were always fun to watch and be part of. So that's what we thought we were good at. We thought we were good at being a dance band. And this record thing, Hoopla, has just been the icing on the cake, and it just keeps on rolling along. Then at some point in time, we went back into the studio and did another album, which I'm particularly proud of, although it never got the press that our first album did. There are some songs on that I think that I'm very proud of. There was a bunch of us who wrote the songs on this one. Tony and I wrote a bunch of songs. Tom, our drummer, wrote a song on it. Rich wrote a song. And some of them are very good. Right From Wrong is a great song.
That was Right From Wrong from the Second Wind CD, released in 1999.
Full Moon Yesterday I love.
Most of the time, well, I feel alright, but now and then I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm in a cold sweat, in a terrible fright. I've seen you walking away. Nothing consoles me, not even your skin, when you say you love me and you let me in. My mind's a monster, I can't say where it's been. I've seen you sliding away.
That was Full Moon Yesterday, another track from the Second Wind CD.
Love Walks Away is a song that I wrote, helping me deal with a divorce that I was going through at that point.
When you hold too tight, when you try too hard, love falls down on you, love falls down. When you take too long, when you can't decide, love walks out on you, love walks away.
That was Love Walks Away, another track from the Second Wind CD.
No, that wasn't the one. No, Love Walks Away wasn't about the divorce. I had a fight with my second wife. my last wife. And I ended up writing that one. Trying to Fool was about my divorce.
Well, I'm too old to try, I'm too bled to bleed, and I don't want to talk about it, just want you to leave. You hurt me much to bear, don't say you didn't know. You never stopped to think, and I just want you to go. Now why we hang on for so long, we never knew. You never cared for me, and I never cared for you. Trying to fool? Who am I 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 trying to fool?
That was Trying to Fool, another track from the Second Wind CD.
And then I'm So Lucky is a great song we wrote, really upbeat.
Got a fast track job in a mainline firm, she says, I'm so lucky. No time to talk, I got money to burn. She says, I'm so lucky. I'm the leading edge, it's an edge, top of the heap, and it's all for me. Cell phone beeper and a personal jet. She says, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. I'm well connected, can't touch me yet. She says, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. I'm the leading edge, what an edge, top of the heap, and it's all for me.
That was I'm So Lucky, another track from the Second Wind CD.
And I don't want to miss Pandora Wants Strange, which Rich wrote, which is a fabulous song about a relationship that they finally got around to making a movie of in 50 Shades of Grey. So he was way ahead of his time.
And that was Pandora Loves Strange, another track from the Second Wind CD. Was it easy to get back to playing music again after so many years working in a completely different career?
Well, I think I'd always been writing music. I never stopped,
Okay.
but I was just writing it for myself. And I never stopped playing music either, but now I'm playing for my kids or at a jam band I'm getting together with somewhere. And I think that's true of all of us. We all kept playing. We just weren't in the band together. Well, I kept playing a little bit. I played a little bit in law school in a folk duo, and then when I joined as a Vista attorney, which paid nothing, I played a club in New Bedford for about 13 weeks. But then I pretty much stopped. Charlie Rockwell, our organist, he went on and still does play professionally in a number of bands, some of them nationally known. And I think Rich Weinberg had a band in med school. Tom, our drummer, is currently in a band now. But, oh yeah, we will get together. And we will cut another album, part of our Ain't Dead Yet tour album. But I don't know when, maybe when I retire or when we're all retired. A couple of us are retired now. Charlie Rockwell, our organist, is a retired surveyor, and I got to get this right, and he retired as a retired rank of Army Colonel. Rich Weinberg is a professor of medicine at Wake Forest. Tom Scheft is a professor in the education school at, I think it's called Central College University, North Carolina Central University, I think it's called. Tony is a retired lawyer. Todd is a consultant to nonprofits and has a web magazine targeted towards nonprofits. Who did I leave out? Tom, Tony, Charlie, Rich, me. I'm a trial lawyer. I'm still working. So it's hard for us to find the time from our busy lives to get together, but we try to. Now we try to get together at least once a year or more often if we can. And we're going to keep writing. We're going to keep at it.
Eric Lindgren was an influence for you guys recording a second album?
Yes. That was his urging. We're going to the studios. Eric Lindgren's still a good friend, and he's got a great recording studio, Arfar Studios, so I imagine we would head down there when we got enough songs and we're ready to go, and we'll put out another album.
There was an option open from a studio to make a movie?
I didn't mention, for a while, there was we were optioned for a movie. Warner Brothers was sending us checks once a year to keep that option alive because they were thinking of making a movie about our story. Wow. It didn't happen, but it was an exciting thing for a little while that they were thinking about that, you know. And there's a company right now that we're in negotiations with. They want to reissue our original album. They want to put out another 5,000 copies. Those 5,000 records I'm talking about are going to be vinyl. So it's still alive and it's still working. There was a producer in Spain that we're talking to who wanted to put a couple of our songs out on a compilation he was doing. So it just keeps rolling along. We keep getting discovered by different generations.
There's been a lot of reissues of the original LPs by various labels in the past. Are there any planned for the future?
So, well, at some point there was another vinyl of our first album, and then it's out on CD. I think you can get it on Amazon. And we've got our second album that came out. So I wouldn't say we've been prolific in the past 30, 40 years, but we keep chugging along.
It's amazing that the members of the band who all have outside careers can get together as much as you guys do to perform.
But music is a real career. It's a real tough career. You don't make it without doing a lot of touring and a lot of time away from home.
Sure, yeah.
You know, so it's my hat's off to anyone who's got the stones to go through that life. It's a tough life.
Most people don't get to do that. They just spend their whole lives trying to break through.
That's right, but everybody's life is, isn't it? Let's get metaphysical.
How did the concept for the first LP cover about? Where was the picture taken?
We did it on Cape Cod. It's two pictures mushed together. One is on a promontory. You can't tell, but we're on the edge of a cliff on the bottom row. And up on top, we're on a bridge somewhere on Cape Cod, and the two images were superimposed. You can't tell quite, but our speakers are all covered in Merry Mecco, although you can see it a little bit. And when we performed, we usually performed wearing Merry Mecco shirts. That was one of our things. You know.
Where was the picture taken?
Tony's family had a home down there, so we could all go and stay, and it just seemed like a nice place to take pictures.
What was the process like recording the LP? Was it all self-produced?
Well, Continental Records had this deal, as I said, where they would do the whole thing for you. So they supplied us with an engineer. But when we went in, remember, we've been playing these songs every Saturday night now for going on 2 years. So we were ready. I think we did the whole thing in about 4 days. And it was all kind of live. It wasn't like one track, then another track. This was a 4-track studio. So it was all kind of live. And that's how it was done.
Were you all into the psychedelic sound at the same time, and was it a sound that you were going for?
The only thing that I can think of on our first album that you might be referring to is at the end of Frozen Laughter, where there's some reversed music going on. And I don't think Tony was trying to copy anyone. I think he was just trying to enhance his song as best he could. I don't think we were trying to be this type of band.
Right.
We were a dance band, and we were trying to put on this album the songs that we liked best from our performances because we liked them. And it wasn't that we were trying to be like someone else. We very much were inner directed, trying to be what we were. I don't think any of us said, oh, let's write this song because it's like that song that somebody else did. We were pretty much doing what we thought. If we liked it, we did it. And we had a lot of fights over our original songs because everybody had input as to whether or not the song was any good or sucked. And so what eventually got on the album was kind of a group consensus as to what we thought was our best stuff. And all we were trying to be was us.
I'm Coming Home was written by the whole band.
Yes, absolutely. The words, as I recall, were obscene. So to that extent, I suppose we were modeling after Louie Louie, which we all believed had obscene lyrics to it. Although I understand, I read a book on Louie Louie where the FBI examined it and said there was nothing obscene. I think they're wrong. But in any event, I suppose that was our tip of the hat to Louie Louie in some sense, but it was our own. And yeah, it was a group effort because everybody had their 2 cents as to what they wanted in the song and what they liked and didn't like.
That was I'm Coming Home, credited to all the members of the band, and another track from the Calm Before LP. The original songs are extremely well written, especially when you consider they're written by kids that were so young.
Remember, we had a lot of free time to do nothing but play music because we couldn't go anywhere. So we'd get up, Saturday mornings after breakfast, and we'd head down to the music room where there was a room we were allowed to practice in, and we would just play all day long.
All that free time you had made you all into a pretty tight band.
That's absolutely right. There was nothing else to do in our free time. I mean, there was a lot of other things to do, but nothing that we really want. We could have studied some more. You can always study
or
more.
Play sports.
Or play sports. But we all loved music, and we liked playing with each other. That was the key for us.
It's a nice thing that you all managed to maintain the friendships over all those years with a mutual musical interest.
That's true. These are some of my closest friends on the planet, and we've known each other since we all lived together for 4 years in the dorm rooms. So I've been very fortunate that way to have these good friends, and very fortunate that they all share the same interest in music that I do and want to get together and play. Hey, listen, some guys go away with their friends and play golf for a long weekend. We go away and play guitar. Yeah, it's okay. We don't fish. We don't play golf.
When you played live, did the originals go over as well as the cover songs?
I think they did. I think in some sense, sometimes they went over better. People would come up and say, we really like that song. We'd tell them if we were going to play an original. And we got a lot of very positive feedback, which is why we put some of the originals we did on the album.
Where did you record the second LP, and what was the process?
Well, we started at Synchro Sound, and we laid down some tracks there, but it wasn't finished. And then I think it was a couple of years before we could get our act together to all get together in one place. And we finished it up, I think, for the most part, at Arfarf Records, or Arfarf Studios. Sounds Interesting Studios, excuse me, that's the name of it, in Middleborough with Eric Lindgren's engineer. And that's where we finished it up, only because it was difficult finding the time to get back together.
There was a book written based on the lives of the members of the band?
Oh, right. Bill Sheft, who is a noted comic author, he's written several books, but he wrote a book that was modeled on us called Time Won't Let Me. It's not the true story of our band, but it's based on the concept of our band, guys in high school who suddenly become famous for 15 minutes. And so we did a performance at the Sit and Bull. I don't think it's there anymore. And he had a book signing at the time to promote his book, which is a very funny book. I would encourage all of you to read it.
When it's time for the band to get back together again to do a show, how do you go about rehearsing for it?
We practice all the time. We send CDs around saying this is what we got to practice against. So we're all practicing alone against the CDs, and then we spend 2 days before the concert making sure that we're all on the same page on these songs, and then we perform and try not to screw up.
On the second LP, you re-recorded a few of the older songs.
We did. I know we did Baby Please Don't Go Again. I had done the lead on that on our original album. Rich had done it a lot when he was in his band at med school, and he really knocked it out of the park, so I graciously ceded the lead to him. But of course we don't market this stuff. We're not pushing it anywhere. We're not touring behind the album. But it just feels good that we did it. So maybe these will be discovered by some other generation down the road.
Did the band ever have a manager?
No, we managed ourselves, which might explain why we haven't gone anywhere.
So how did you and the band feel about the first LP being bootlegged?
Well, I was ecstatic that somebody cared enough to want to steal our record, but I think the majority of the band felt that this was wrong and something needed to be done about it. So I think Tony wrote them a letter and said, look, you did this without our permission, and negotiated a deal to get some royalties from them.
What was it like to play at the Rat?
Oh, the Rat was great. It was like everybody had always gone there, as kids. So to be able to play at the Rat, like playing at the Paradise, was a big deal. We were pretty nervous because we didn't know what our audience was going to be, because the Rat attracts different sorts of people. But for the most part, they all came because it was the Rising Storm and they wanted to see us. So we had a lot of very big fans there, and all my kids showed up, which was nice. My kids have come to some of these concerts, so they get to see a side of me that they're not used to.
In 1996, somebody made a documentary about the making of the second CD.
Yes. Yeah, I have a copy. It hasn't been shown anywhere that I'm aware of, but we have it. It's about the Rising Storm, yeah. Wow. Interviews with fans, performances, interviews with us.
Hey, here are the facts. These guys in 1965 were a band called the BBA Jug Band.
Yes, true.
In 1966, they were a band called the Remnants.
True.
In 1967, due to a course syllables title at Andover Academy, they changed their name to the Rising Storm.
Excellent!
Good choice. 1981, they got back together again, played their 15th high school reunion. They cut an album in 1967, which is a great period piece, good selection of music, and a very valuable collectible. And right now it's 1992, and they have a date here at TT's. Tomorrow they're playing Andover Academy in the 25th prep school reunion. And then they're going down to New York, finally doing a New York date. Anyway, this is the Rising Storm.
Excuse me, you mind if I ask you a question? We're doing like a video about this band, the Rising Storm.
Okay.
Did you ever hear of them?
No, I haven't.
No? Are you like they're a 60s band. Are you in the 60s music? like this video about this band here. You guys ever like heard of them before?
No.
Do they remind you of anyone?
The Beatles.
The Beatles.
Immediately the Beatles.
All right.
And then the Monkees after that. And then maybe if they put on like Hawaiian Prince, the Bee Gees. But definitely a 60s group.
That 60s style is coming back now.
Prep school band, and they had made a demo or a record, like 500 copies, and that was all that was left. So it's a real rarity, a collector's item, and I guess it's just been released on CD.
Oh. Well,
that's all I know.
Thanks a lot.
I think it's, as we say, long deserved, and they did wonderful things just a few years ago, but it sounds better. I do have this CD.
Be under R for Rising Storm. No, that's S. R. Read. Have you heard of that, Hope?
You ever heard of the
this
Rising
band?
Storm?
Rising Storm, nope.
No. So you have none of their albums here, Rising Storm?
No, sir. No, not that I know of.
All right. Thanks a lot. Hey, sounds good, man. Hey, listen. You ever hear of this band here?
Rising Storm. A lot of record collectors have kind of picked this as being the ultimate collectible band of all time. Some people even think they're bigger and better than the Beatles. I, for one, don't agree with that, but I do think they're one of the better 60s garage rock bands.
They got some tune that's lasted 20 years and is a collector's item or something, all right?
Well, kinda.
That is it.
Will you listen to it? It's not it.
That is it. I'm
Listen.
telling you.
Let's
It's
do
it.
it. Let's
What
do
is
it.
it for 6 months now? Exactly the way it's on the record. Our record? It's just
Do it. Do it.
chords.
We feel extremely lucky to be able to enjoy our childhood friendships. We really were kids when we played. We were kids, and it's a fluke to us that people find us worth listening to now, to tell you the truth.
There were high school age kids going through puberty and, sort of learning about the world, but they hadn't learned it yet. And now we have this, we look back at this time of innocence, and everyone uses that phrase. It's almost cliche to use that phrase in reference to the 60s, but it's true. And it's just any time there's innocence. In the 70s, in the 80s, there was innocence. It's just, I guess, these days, innocence ends at around 6th grade.
You know anything about this band, Rising Storm?
Yes, I do.
Are you related to one of the Storm?
I'm the bassist son.
You are?
Yes, sir.
What do you think about your father's, notoriety?
I think it's very interesting how it exploded all of a sudden. From, basically a bunch of guys who hadn't picked up the guitar, or I don't know, I can't say for the rest of them, but for my dad, who didn't play the bass all that much, to this week of
in school, we ate, slept, lived, and played music together. We were together constantly. I think it helped us all survive the pressures of the school at the time. There was pressures in every school in the late 60s. We had great hopes that, this would help us to be able to meet women.
We were all in the same dorm. We started out with a jug band, as it turned out, sort of like old Jim Weston jug band type thing. It stayed with us. Music is, it's part of our life. It really is. We'll never make a lot of money on it. I'll never quit my job for it, but I love it. It's totally different. You plug in a guitar, and I don't have to worry about budgets and personnel and lectures and medical students and sick patients. It's just a whole other world.
My son, the doctor, and the musician. I don't know which I like better.
I think it's pretty exciting. I know Charlie's been working really hard about it. There's been a lot of telephone and fax correspondence going on to get them organized for it.
Has he been practicing a lot?
Yeah. He got the new keyboard for Christmas, and we haven't seen him after dinner since.
Very big in Europe.
Could you book them in?
They'd be a lot bigger than the Apostles. If they sound good, what I may do is license the original album, Column 4, with a couple of new tracks, license that to a European record company, and that might warrant a tour. That'd be about the only way they'll get over there.
Now, what did you earn that A in?
Sure, they get.
That was baseball. Baseball, skiing.
Were you a pitcher? Were you a three-letter man?
No.
If you had three sports that you were on varsity, then you got a special sweater with the A woven into it.
Really?
Yeah, you didn't have one of those?
No, I had 5 letters, but they weren't in threes.
Bob, what'd you get your letters in?
I got letters from home.
In the mail.
Yeah, in the mail.
So 60s. I'm a record collector, and this is one of my favorite records.
The spreadsheet on the computer. They've made their playlist with a spreadsheet. Everybody voted for his top 20 songs, and then they put them on columns and rows and sent them around, rated them on a scale of 1 to 4, and got the average score and standard deviations and tabulations, who voted what for what, and sent that around.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
How much of that of his guitar with Tony's guitar are we getting?
Roll.
No.
So how they sounded to you?
They sound
That's as good as I'm gonna get.
as if you had taken a diamond and refined it down to its to make it shine even brighter than it was, so that every facet of the diamond reflects the light.
That was an authentic response from the era. I think we should all, we can all learn from that.
Yeah.
What do you need? Just tell me.
Singer.
You need the singer.
Hello.
Thing is, though, the bass shouldn't be doing Bo Diddley when everybody else is doing that.
Just a bum.
The rhythm could be dagga 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 or bum 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 bum. Don't go against the beat. Just, or you could pick it real fast with your right hand. That sounds cool. That sounds real cool. That sounds real cool. Can you do that?
Went out in the studio and Todd had talked to me. He said, Eric, I want to tell you something. What I just played was what you kind of told me to play. Anybody could have done it. I mean, what's so great about it? And it's hard to explain, but it's that sort of music that anyone can make, everyman music. That's what makes The Rising Storm really great, is that it's music that could have been made by anybody, but I mean, they ended up doing it better than anybody.
You also opened for Peter Wolf's first band, The Hallucinations?
The Hallucinations, yeah. We opened for them. That was when we performed at Design Research. I think they were the top bill and we opened for them. And I think that Peter Wolf also was the announcer when we opened for the for Burying the Remains, as I recall.
Did you know about the band The Lost? Did you guys do any shows with them?
Oh yeah, we'd heard of them. We were very excited to be on the same bill with them. Yeah, and we thought of them as a serious band as opposed to us who had cut a record in high school.
Are you surprised at how much the original LP is sold for on online auctions?
Well, yeah, I think I just printed out something that I gave you a little bit earlier from some website. I think it went for around 3,000 or 4,000. I know, it's pretty exciting. And I have 2 copies. I'll never tell you where they are.
Thanks for being on the Boston Beat today, Bob.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Rat Tales, Boston Rock Stories. Rat Tales is produced and directed by Lenny, Scolletta, and Mike Hoban, with a huge thanks to Medford Community Media in beautiful downtown Medford, Massachusetts.